Hello. Well, it's Tuesday. Didn't bring the chair out this time. Check my height here. Yeah. Think I'll be alright on the camera. Let me take a look real quick. Yeah, I'll be alright. So, as you guys know, I have brought up mesh long underwear before on this channel, and I have been wearing mesh underwear on and off for 30 or 40 years, a long time. So I got introduced to mesh underwear by the Norwegians. Okay, the Norwegians are pretty famous for the mesh underwear, I think. Well, in my background and stuff, they're pretty famous. So I thought here a while back, last year I think it was, I said, well, I talked about it, that I said, well, let me just go ahead and get a new mesh long underwear top. Okay, and I tried to get a set of trousers too, or underwear, long underwear, pants, but they didn't have any in the size I wanted. So anyway, I just went with the top, and then I've been wearing it. It might have been a couple of years ago. It's been a little while. It's but I got it, and either a year or two ago, I started wearing it when it was cold, and then I thought it feels different. It feels different. So then I looked up the material on it, and the material was 80% wool. Okay, this outer one, I've got both of them on. This outer one is the Norwegian Brynje. Okay, it's 80% wool, 20% nylon, and I was kind of feeling a bit of a chill, kind of feeling a little bit of a wet feeling when I've been using it, and I thought, I don't think that it felt quite like that, before, when I had been using it. And so I dug around a bit, and I did find some places on the internet where it was talked about being 70% wool, 30% nylon. But I'm thinking, I don't know. I mean, it didn't seem quite like it was a sponge, for sweat before. Now I find out that they actually make a set of the mesh, I think in polypropylene or something. I don't know, nylon, polypro, something. But I wasn't going to bother ordering it, because I thought, well, I'm going to order Wiggy's. Wiggy's is right here in the States, and Wiggy's has made fishnet long underwear for a long time, and I thought, I'm going to go ahead and order one of their tops, because it's 100% nylon. See, and I'm a wool guy, so you gotta think about all of this. So wool will soak up moisture. Okay, we all know that wool is warm when wet. If you get, if you got a heavy coat and it gets pretty soaked out there in the winter time, you'll still remain warm, because it will work to the capacity of 80% of your heat will be retained, and you'll lose some because of, the water, right? But as I've talked about before, if you relanize your wool coats, then they'll soak up less water and you'll retain more function for maintaining your heat. Okay. Now we'll just put that aside for now because we're talking about these mesh underwears. So right here I've got the Norwegian Brynje brand. I've got this on the outside, and I have the 100% nylon Wiggies on the inside. Okay, as you can see, the holes are quite a bit larger. Okay, they're quite a bit larger, and there's no stretch because it's made of nylon. So you gotta order a unit that is slightly bigger than what you would normally wear in like a shirt. Okay, so I'm wearing an extra large, and Jerry himself picked out the size. I just sent him my height and my chest. Okay, my chest, I'm 50 inches in the chest, and my height, and he was like, okay, this is your size. So I took him at his word because he's been doing this stuff a long time. Took the order plus some other Lamilite socks that I ordered, and took it to the store where I normally would have somebody order for me because I don't do those types of orders anymore with a credit card and whatnot. I said, this is what I want, get it, and then they did. And so I'm actually quite warm right now, okay, despite the fact that I have two permeable tops on, right, both mesh. Anyway, I'm feeling kind of heated. Now the thing is that the reason why I decided to try this Wiggies, to go along, either go along with this or go along separately from this Brynje top, is because nylon does not soak up sweat. Okay, so anything that happens with me, I start perspiring, and that all comes out as a vapor initially. If I just have the base layer as nylon, it will get soaked into the next wool layer will wick it away. Okay, now the next wool layer could be this 100% wool long john top. Okay, it could be this. Alright, which this is not going to allow the vapor to move through real quick. So that's what you got to think about when you're layering, is how fast are your layers going to allow the heat and vapor to move through your clothing to get outside of the garment, right? You got to learn how to mitigate your sweat. So if you're not doing a whole lot of moving about, maybe you're in a hunting stand, or you're pulling stag, or something, or you're on a snowmobile, something to where you're not doing a whole lot of action. Okay, you could think more about this kind of a layer next. Okay, if you're doing stuff, you're perspiring, you may just go with the 100% nylon base in the Wiggies fishnet, or it just depends, right? Depends on how warm you want to be and how much you think you're going to perspire. So you have to take all this into consideration. But right now, I'm pretty warm. So I would probably not go with that long john top. I'd probably go straight to something like this fisherman's sweater, which is a medium weight wool, and this should wick any perspiration that's starting to come out from me being heated up. Okay, it should wick it away. And this right here, plus these two layers, probably good for 20 below. Moving around, okay? Because the fisherman's sweater has this type of a weave, okay, which is pretty tight knit. And then, and then I've got these two layers on. Something like, if it's the middle of the day, you're out there, you're Nordic skiing, so you're working up some heat, right? So this should be plenty for something like that. Of course, if it starts getting really cold and the night time starts coming on, then you have to think about a heavier layer or two heavier layers like that. Because at nighttime, you no longer have those little photons beating on your back or on your chest or on your side or on the top of your head. You no longer have those little photons heating you up. Okay, those went away. They're on the other side of the earth now. Now it's just darkness. So that's when you gotta start thinking about heavier layers. Even if you're cross-country skiing at night, for whatever reason, you need to start thinking about a little bit heavier layer, whatnot, right? So all this stuff needs to be taken into consideration, right? See, this is the thing about layers and whatnot during the winter, especially if you happen to be a soldier, okay? You have to think about mitigating your perspiration through your clothing depending on what you're doing. Okay? So if you're going to be like cruising on a snowmobile across the tundra, okay, you're going to layer up a little bit more. You might have an anorak on. That may be your outer layer. Or if you're a hunter and you're on a snowmobile, you're pulling a sled, you got that sledge behind you, and then you're taking a lot of wind, it's cold, it might be 30, 40 below, and then with the wind chill factor from you driving that sled, it could be 60 below. You got to be covered up. You got to have the layers. It is what it is. But yeah, I got this other one because I want to try a couple of experiments. And, like I said, over a number of decades, I have worn on and off mesh underwear. Hillary wore mesh underwear on the top of Mount Everest. And a lot of people have worn this type of underwear in military forces and so on. It works. A lot of people seem to either not know about it or have forgotten about it. And some people are just discovering it. So, right now I'm doing my evaluation starting today on this Wiggy's version. It's hard to say, there was two things that I wanted to point out with the Wiggy's mesh is that, number one, it's not as comfortable. Just know that right up front, because 100% nylon. And number two, it's not stretchy. So if you get it, you got to make sure that you're ordering one size up from what you would normally wear. All right. Now, in this Brynje mesh long underwear top, it's a 2XL. So I got that a little bit large on purpose back when I ordered it, because I thought maybe I'll combine these two in the future. And now I am doing that. So I'm going to combine these two, give it a test, go from there. I mean, the thing about this is that the Brynje underwear is 80% wool. And it's very close to sandwiched with the 100% nylon Wiggy's underwear. Okay, so it's going to be the first layer of wicking. It's going to be the first layer to wick up moisture, and then the second layer will obviously be the wool sweater, aka jumper, right? So this will obviously be the second layer. So this will this will wick from this layer, right? This will wick from this Brynje layer and move it out. So the whole idea is just to mitigate the moisture that is naturally happening from movement outside, keeping warm, but yet mitigating the moisture. Mitigating the moisture is really like a big thing. It's very big. The more moisture that you have inside of your clothing, the chillier you will be after you have stopped moving. Okay? So you want to try to maintain the least amount of moisture that you can. Alright? Granted that after a little bit, even if your inside of your wool is moist, you drink some hot chocolate, you drink some hot coffee, whatnot, get that core, stoked back up. It's kind of like stoking the fire. The fire goes a little bit low and whatnot. Throw in some more wood, give it some air, stoke it up. There's that furnace going again real hot. And then, of course, once your furnace is hot, that will in turn move that through your circulatory system, okay, heating everything. And once the body is heated up, then what you're wearing is heated up. That will cause that wetness, that wet perspiration, to gasify, turn into a vapor, and be drawn out of the garments. Okay, this is what we're looking for. That's an ideal thought process for that, right? So that's what we're looking for. It's never perfect. There's not a perfect system. Nobody is ever perfectly warm when you're actually outside doing something in the cold. Nobody is ever actually perfectly warm and perfectly dry unless they're absolutely just not doing anything and they're just hanging out and they have warm, dry underwear on and layers on. Even a down parka. Down parkas are great, hanging out on a snowmobile, or if you're a sled driver, because you are not actually physically doing a whole lot. You got that down parka on, and you can have a wool parka on. It'll still maintain itself because you're not really doing anything. But the nice thing about a down parka versus a wool parka is that if you are on a sledge, like a dog sledge, if you're on a dog sled, you're just mostly just standing on the back. Okay. The thing about the down parka is it's lighter. Okay. Wool, it's going to be heavier. It's going to still do the job. I prefer wool because I'm a sweater. Okay, I sweat. So the more dry my insulation is, the better for me, right? So there's a million different ways you could go about talking about different types of materials, garments, and so on. But take a lot of things that I talk to you about and then make up what's good for your situation and for you, you know. And if you have questions, I'm always open to questions, okay? All you got to do is, you know, get the email off the channel. It's right up there at the top. You know, just put in the appropriate things, like the little at, okay, which is an ampersand or whatever they call it, and then, you know, gmail.com, right? So yeah, so I'm pretty hot already. I'm very warm, believe it or not. I'm wearing 2 mesh tops. I've got regular wool long underwear on with some boxers, and I'm quite warm right now inside this house because it's warmed up a bit. It's going to be warmed up a bit this week. I still got a lot of snow on the ground out there. I got over a foot of snow back there everywhere. We're supposed to get some more snow, but that's the way it is in New England. It's supposed to be that way, you know. Anyway, we'll see what else happens, and if nothing else, I'll get back to you this weekend. And I'm still working on some other things at the same time. You know, still watching the silver market and whatnot. Anyway, yeah. Any questions or whatnot, just drop me a line. I'll see you later.